Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the CFP tiers. As I see it, I think Ohio State and Indiana are essentially in the CFP. Obviously some work to do, but they should be able to handle just about everyone else on their schedule. Hopefully Ohio State can get over the Michigan curse. If they can't, they still should firmly be in the CFP. But at the end of the day, let's get into the best bets that I have for this upcoming weekend. A little bit slower of a weekend. A lot of the big time matchups in the SEC, the three ranked matchups all over there. But at the end of the day, plenty of interesting games to talk about and plenty of games that I feel okay about going into this weekend. Always on the fence about these, but at the end of the day, went 5-3 last week. Hopefully Virginia Tech can get us off to a nice start. I'm gonna take Virginia Tech minus 4.5 over Cal this weekend. Cal just escaped a game over UNC. Now they got to go all the way to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech's not a great team. Since Philip Montgomery's taken over, Kyron Jones has found a little something. He's been able to play with a little bit more confidence. He's been healthy and running the ball around very, very consistently. I think this is going to be an interesting game. Virginia Tech is relatively good against the run. Cal really struggles to run the football. JKS walking into a very tough environment over there in Lane Stadium. I just think it's going to be enough. I think Virginia Tech is going to be able to win kind of an ugly defensive battle in this one, maybe turn JKS over a couple of times, and I think the Hokies get a big time win here, and one that doesn't have a ton of to do with what the ACC is going to be like going forward. But I like Virginia Tech to get a big time win at home here. I'll take Memphis plus 4.5. And before anyone says anything, I did pick South Florida on Tuesday, and I picked them by 14 points. This obviously does not make sense. I couldn't get it out of my head. Ryan Silverfield is too good of a head coach to have his guys play that poorly 2 weeks in a row. It's just not going to happen. Brendan Lewis, I hope he goes. Even if he doesn't go, I think this defense is going to play the best football they've played all year. I think they're going to play with their hair on fire. Obviously, there's a game that could put them in the CFP or outright knock them out. I think this team is just the crux of this argument. The crux of this pick is this team is just too tough. I have too much respect for Ryan Silverfield. I have too much respect for Memphis football. I think they find a way to make this game close. I'm not saying they're going to win it. I think I overreacted just a little bit to the Brendan Lewis injury. I think this team has great culture, and I think they're going to find a way to, at the very least, push USF to the limit. Washington, Illinois, over 54.5. Had to go back to the John Ross days to get a little bit of picture with these two teams, but love this matchup a ton. The two quarterbacks in this matchup are fascinating to me, and they're probably the two more overshadowed elite quarterbacks in college football. Elite might be aggressive, but both playing really, really high-level football. Luke Altmaier started the year with as good as numbers as you're going to find in the entire country, has tapered off a little bit as he's played some of these higher-level teams, but is still a very, very competent, very confident quarterback, and he is a guy going into a matchup with one of the more interesting quarterbacks in the entire country. Damon Williams is one of those guys that has elite athletic ability, and he can really rip the ball around. That was kind of the big thing coming into this year is, can he take that step forward throwing the ball? Can he be a little bit more dangerous down the field? He's doing exactly that. Now, they kind of got stuffed in a locker by Michigan. They kind of got stuffed in a locker by Ohio State. So they got to be careful about Gabe Jacqueson, this very aggressive Illinois defense. But I think there's enough openings here. The Illinois defense has been very shaky against the pass. Denzel Boston is a very, very good receiver, one of the best in the country. On the other side, the Washington defense just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. I think Luke Altmaier is going to have open receivers. I think he can execute the offense at a really high level. Hank Beatty is going to be a nightmare for Washington to handle. I think they go back and forth in this game. I picked Washington earlier this week, but I do think Washington ends up winning this one, and both these teams put up quite a few points here. BYU, Iowa State over 49.5. These two teams are really, really interesting. And I went back and forth on this one. I had under, I had over, I went back and forth a ton. I tend to believe that both these teams have defenses that, one, I think the BYU defense is going to be a little bit gassed after last week. It was a very, very tough week for them. It was one where they were battling back and forth, where Utah just continued to try to run the ball and just put them in tough positions. And now they got to go on the road to an Iowa State team that, although their defense is a little bit all over the place, and we'll talk about that in a second, they have the ability to, at the very least, score points. They can get the ball on the outside. Rocco Becht is finally getting a little bit of juice with his receivers. They've been injured, so they lose the game to Colorado. I think they're going to be juiced up coming into this game. I think it's going to be really close. I had under written down on my paper. I put over into the graphic because I felt a little bit better about that at the time. It's a total toss-up. I think both of these defenses are struggling just enough. I think the BYU defense is playing good football. I think after last week, they're going to be just a little bit less focused, a little bit run down, just a little bit worn, and Iowa State's going to be able to take advantage. And I don't think Iowa State's going to be able to stop LJ Martin at all in this football game. I'll take the over 49.5. I went back and forth, and I'm fighting myself as I'm saying it, but I'll roll with this one for the time being. Feel pretty good about these two offenses at least putting up 50 points. Iowa, Minnesota over 39.5. It felt really gross coming out of my mouth. Taking an Iowa over feels just really, really icky, but I'm going to do it. The Iowa team has run the ball really, really efficiently. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to get passing touch. Well, I know why the reason is, but they haven't been able to get a passing touchdown this year. They've been all over the place in that category, or at least in Big Ten play this year. It's been bad. There's no two ways to put it on the offensive side of the ball. They found something against Wisconsin. They were able to run the football very effectively, especially with Mark Gronowski. And I think against this Minnesota defense that played really well against Nebraska last week, I think Iowa's going to put just more pressure on them. I think they're going to run the football very consistently, where Nebraska got a little bit away from that throughout that football game. I think for Minnesota, it's scary going up against a Phil Parker defense, no doubt about that. I think Drake Lindsey's playing at a really high level, and I think he's going to be able to find enough against this defense. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. I think it's going to be a very, very nail-biter over-under, but 24-21 or 24-20 type game here, I think, is what we have in store. I don't know who wins it. I think these two teams are very, very evenly matched and is a rather big game down the road for the Big Ten, at least in the pecking order of what the Big Ten is in 2025. This is a big one, but I'll take the over. As crazy as it sounds, I will take an Iowa, Minnesota over 39.5. Just please get me to 40. Mississippi State, Texas under 45.5. Feel pretty good about this one. I'll be totally honest with you. The Mississippi State offense is very dangerous. They absolutely have the guys to score a ton of points against a lot of defenses in the country. I think they're a little bit too much explosive based, or a little bit too much boomer bust, I guess is the best way to put it. They're going up against a defense that just does not give up big plays. Texas is very, very good at keeping a cap on things. Now, they won't have Michael Taft in this game, so that's something to keep in mind. The safety is going to be out for a couple of weeks, broke his thumb, it sounds like. They're replacing him with a guy that started right before him a couple of years ago and then was out for the entire year last year in Derek Williams. I think they're going to be okay on the back end. They have a very, very talented depth group in that unit. I think they're going to be able to keep a cap on this offense in the pass game, and I just don't think Devon Booth's going to find a ton of opening. Maybe he'll be able to spurt a couple of runs for 10 or 12 yards, but overall, I don't think he's going to be able to really get going against this Texas front. I don't think I have to pitch the Texas offense to you. They do plenty well stopping themselves. Now, Mississippi State can plenty stop them as well. It's not to say that defense doesn't have a shot if Texas doesn't hurt themselves, but Texas is going to hurt themselves. I absolutely promise you that. I think it's going to be a grind of a game. I think it's going to be very slow. I haven't decided who I think is going to win. I really don't know. It's an absolute toss-up in my mind. Maybe I'd lean a little bit Mississippi State right here, but at the end of the day, Texas finds a way to just play up and down the entirety of the year. We'll see what happens. On Saturday, what I think will happen is not a whole lot of points on either side of the football. Cincinnati minus 3.5 over Baylor. Cincinnati needs this one. As the Big 12 gets further and further down the road, Cincinnati, continues to just sit up at the top. They're firmly in the mix with BYU. They're the team that would play BYU in the Big 12 championship if it were to end today. This is a huge game in their path. They have a couple other ones down the road that they're going to have to handle, no doubt about it, but this is a game where if they do not get it right, it is going to get a little bit sketchy for them in a hurry, and they're going to fall back into the nightmare of a Baylor, or the team they're playing, or an Iowa State, where you're right there, you feel like you can break through, but there's just too many teams right on top of you, or there's too much of a mess in the Big Ten to find your way back into it. I think Cincinnati's got to get this one done, and if you watch the Baylor defense, you know why I think they can get it done. That offense has been throwing the ball all over the field. Cyrus Allen has been one of the better players in the entire Big 12 this year. They've been running the ball very well with Tawi Walker and Evan Pryor. I think Cincinnati finds a way to get this one. I think Brendan Sorsby has a really nice day, and they have to get a stop or two. I don't think it's going to be perfect from the Cincinnati defense, but I think they do enough, and Cincinnati gets a big-time win here. And then the night game. and another under. And I hate to do it, but I just saw too many unders that I liked here. But I'm fighting back and forth on this one. The A&M offense has decided to lean on the run of late. I think they're going to do that in this football game. Now, I don't know how successful it is I don't know how successful it is in the first quarter. I don't know how successful it is in the first 20 minutes of game time. I think he can be successful throughout 60 minutes, where you can wear this team down a little bit, find some running lanes. You can do a lot of the stuff that Vanderbilt did last week with the quarterback run game with Marcel Reed. You can play around with that. There's no doubt about that. I think LSU does enough to at least keep that pinned in for a while. And I think their outside players, and Mansour Delane and DJ Pickett and all of those guys, can do enough against these wide receivers. I don't think it's going to be perfect. I don't think anyone is going to be perfect against this A&M offense. I think they can pin them in enough. I think it could be a 10-3 game at halftime where A&M's able to get in the end zone once but isn't able to get consistent offense going. The LSU offense, I think, is going to help me out plenty here. I think the LSU offensive line is going to have a nightmare on their hands when they have Cassius Howell on the other side of the ball. I think this is just one of those games where it gets a little bit bogged down. A&M not trying to force the issue in the way environment. They're running the football very aggressively. I think we got a rock fight. I think A&M's going to win it, but I do think we got a rock fight. A&M's done this thing where they play incredible offense and have a shootout one week, and then they play a little bit of a rock fight the next week, and then back and forth. I think this is going to be a little bit of a rock fight. I think the LSU offense, while getting better, I think you're catching a rather tough matchup at the wrong time. So this is going to be a really fun one, no doubt about it. Will keep LSU alive or possibly send Texas A&M pretty much to the CFP. So going to be incredible to watch that one unfold. The best bets this week are interesting. You look through the slate and there's not one that totally jumps out to you, but those unders are really interesting. And I'm going to roll with the unders. Kind of hate to do it. Life is a little bit too short to not bet the over, but at the end of the day, I'll roll with the unders this week, and we'll see what happens. If it goes poorly, you can bet on cheering for points next week. But let's hope we can build off that 5-3 record from last week into this week and see if we can get back over 500. Still lingering under 500 for the year. Hopefully we can find our way back over.